Hello everybody and welcome to the Jumputi Hero Saint Seiya Feature Festival batch review. My name is Scarface King. Before we get into the new units, and they're not really new because this video is a little bit late again, but we have our reasons. We'll talk a little bit about that in a sec. First of all, new information for the Japan version of the game. The next feature festival is going to be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We don't have much information beyond that, but everybody is assuming it will be part 5, so exciting times. More information on that is coming tomorrow, and I assume the full information won't be coming for a couple of days, but we will see about that. And on the Taiwanese version, we have a Tanabata festival event. So far, the only information we have on that is there's going to be a new limited Tsunade, who is of course exclusive to that version of the game, and a version 2 Kabuto, exclusive to the game. It is the version where he has not turned into a crazy snake man just yet. So, kind of cool, kind of neat, and we'll talk more at length about those once we have more information. So, to start things off with the Saint Seiya Feature Festival, bam, here is the batch. I will say, there has been an update. You may have noticed there's been an update to the database. We've included all of the medals for the characters now, instead of just having the icons. This was met with mixed reviews, which at first I was kind of surprised by, but I guess it's obviously, you know, people have the aesthetic preference. It's fine, I get it. But I still stand by this change simply because this is how the characters appear in game, and I think it's better for beginners. I think it's better for people that are not as well versed with the characters. They get much more information in a single glance than they would have before, and that especially helps with differing which characters are certain versions and which characters, say for example here, Shina goes up to 6-star rarity, she starts at 3-star, not all 3-stars do that. Marin is a 4-star, only goes up to 5-star. You don't have this information at one glance with just a thumbnail, so I thought it was something that was useful to add. You might agree, you might disagree. It is what it is, the change has been made, and that's how it's going to be going forward. Let's talk about the batch. An interesting batch. An interesting batch. I feel like the Bleach batch for me was just kind of meh. There was kind of not a lot to sink my teeth into there. This batch, however, this batch, pretty damn tasty. So let's start off with the limited. 7 Sense Awakened Seiya. He is one of the best units in the game. Simple. That is the classification I would give him. One of the best in the game. There is nothing letting this unit down. He's just simply a must-have. His ult, you might recognize. He is the 44% weakener for blue, the limited weakener for blue. And because of that, he will be considered one of the best units in the game for the foreseeable future. If you're wondering, you know, what makes this so good, weakening contributes so much to damage when you're trying to go for a burst or whatever. And sure, there will be times where you'll want to use a 99 luck lead to inflict that weakening. It'll be slightly less, obviously. But in the case of Seiya, the weakening is so high that he will be a pretty solid choice for almost any red content. Simple as. Very good unit. And the thing that makes these units even better is they're not just weakening, but they are hitting hard as well. Very, very nice. His buddy skill is a blue version of Yunohana Yuna, which makes it very good for PvP. If you don't really understand how these skills work, the reason it's boosting attack for the buddy rather than boosting for the whole team is because you only need the boost for the buddy for PvP. But if you had a 50% boost for all team members, in PvE that would be ridiculously powerful. A 4-turn 50% boost. In PvP, it is still ridiculously powerful, but that's what they want you to use him for. Goes up to 80% at max level. And then his passive, unconditional attack boost, always good. He is immune to bubble extension. We always like immunities, so that's good. And he has a bubble reduction, which is HP restricted. But typically speaking, HP restrictions are far more flexible than stuff like turn restrictions or class restrictions. So I don't really have an issue with it being restricted. And it's pretty nice. It makes him kind of a get out of jail, you know, pinch battler. Because he's going to use that skill when you're 65% or less. And you're going to get off some skills that you wouldn't have got off before. So very nice. And I really don't have much, like, to say about him beyond he is so good. And I'm so annoyed that I went for Yamamoto instead of Seiya in the end. But I couldn't have known. I couldn't have known ahead of time. Well, I could have known not to pull for Yamamoto. That was a given. But you do what you do, and I did what I did. Moving on to... Let's go on to Shiryu. Let's talk about Shiryu next. Now, Shiryu was a limited unit on the Tier 1 version. On the JP version, not the case. He is a medal store unit. This is... it's not a new thing because we had Dai added in a similar way. He wasn't a limited on Tier 1 originally or anything like that, but he went in the store as a super expensive unit, kind of as a faux limited. He's not a limited, but he's so much better than all the other medal store units and so much more expensive. He's kind of supposed to feel that sort of way. He is a limited class, limited tier. And Shiryu is obviously not going to be as good as someone like Seiya, because he's free, but has very good upside potential, a solid skill set, and potentially worth investing some jewels in as a front line. So his ultimate attack makes him a hitter. He inflicts damage and cuts his own HP. The cut in HP is a fair drawback for a free-to-play unit because he's plenty strong enough to make up for that. And for 2 turns, he boosts his own ultimate attack damage, and that goes up to 26% with 442% damage. Now, compared to other free-to-play units, Shiryu has the obvious drawback of getting dupes for him is difficult. It's going to cost so many medals, and you can only buy 1 a month, so it's going to take you 7 months to get him to max level. So, is it realistically reasonable to say that this is a fair representation of him as a free-to-play unit? It's not. I think getting 1 copy is fine. Him at level 12 is not a fair representation. So you are missing out on quite a lot of damage there. But is he worth using jewels on? I would argue, yes. And I know a few people that have. But you may have better options. You may have a limited that fulfills the role a bit better, and you might want to use jewels on him, in which case, fair enough. I'm personally not going to be using jewels on him unless a situation comes up where I think he would do the job. But he inflicts good damage, he boosts his own ultimate attack, he's just going to be a hitter. He's just going to be the character you're bursting with, the character you're trying to do lots of damage with. Pretty nice ultimate attack. Pretty nice ultimate attack. His buddy skill gives you a decent little bit of heal. Little 5k at max level, but probably more like, you know, a little bit less than that because you're going to be at like level 6 probably. And he converts 1 random bubble to a skill bubble with boosted base damage, which goes up to 117%. It's pretty decent, but personally, if you were investing jewels, if I were investing jewels into him, no, I wouldn't put it into his buddy skill. His ultimate attack, totally. His buddy skill, definitely not. His passive, unconditional attack boost, always good. Ineffective bubble reduction, pretty good. And some personal damage reduction, pretty good. You're getting 3 things on his support. Or his buddy skill, sorry. Passive, fuck. His passive skill. Pretty nice. I would say not necessarily worth investing jewels in. I probably wouldn't invest jewels in that. Simply because all you're getting out of that is more damage reduction, a little bit more attack boost. But again, it really depends on your box, it depends on your characters, because there's a lot of people that haven't invested any money in the game. They might have enough medals for Shiryu, and they might have a load of jewels and no limiters to spend them on. So go for it. If in that situation, go for it, because he's going to be one of your better units. And, you know, I think Dai had the setback of doing boosted damage to poison enemies. Shiryu is just a flat hitter. It does mean that, yes, in the future, he's going to drop off a bit. possibly, but I mean, Dye dropped off as well, so it doesn't really make that much difference. I think for what he is, I quite like him. And I'm hoping the Metal Shop units going forward are more like this. Assuming we get some of the characters that were exclusive to Taiwan as Metal Shop units here, I hope they are of a similar, if not better, class. Because it's quite nice, but 800k medals is a lot of medals. Even for the whales, that's still a big chunk. So, I don't know. Moving on, well, let's talk about Andromeda Shun. The first of the gacha units we're talking about today. Not including the limited gacha Seiya, but Shun you can get off a ticket, Shun you can get off of the purchasable sale pack. So a little bit more accessible than say Seiya. And I would say Shun has very good usability. He nicely circumvents both attack down and bubble extension. So a little bit of utility there. Something that's quite nice is he does damage based on recovery. Now, there is a downside to this, and that is when you limit break characters, the recovery boost is not going to be as good. If you limit break Shun, that recovery boost is not going to be as good as if you are limit breaking, say, any other standard gacha unit that does damage based on attack. So there's a bit of a drawback there, but there are some benefits to that. For example, recovery based damage does, as I mentioned before, circumvent attack down. Attack down is only going to affect Shun's normal attack damage. It is not going to affect his ultimate attack. So it's a kind of cool way to make a character bypass something without directly making it part of the ultimate attack, because it doesn't say this unit is not affected by attack down. It doesn't need to. He just bypasses it with his ultimate attack. And he also reduces damage received by a nice little amount. So, pretty good ultimate attack. His buddy skill is a red version of V2 Byakuya, who we talked about in the Bleach batch review. Pretty good potential in PvP, especially if you have one of these double tap units. Simply pretty nice for PvP, but the PvE usage somewhat limited, somewhat restrictive. Not bad, but similar to Seiya, a buddy skill that is clearly made for PvP. It is intended for PvP. And we have another one of those to talk about a little bit later. Now, the passive. The passive gives you an unconditional recovery boost. A lot of the other units give an unconditional attack boost. Shun instead gives an unconditional recovery boost, which makes sense because Shun's ultimate attack is based on recovery, not on attack. The unconditional recovery boost is a bit of a mixed bag compared to the attack boost, because even if his ult is recovery based, his normal attack is not, as we mentioned before. However, you do get the additional benefit of boosted heals from heart bubbles, supports, legend summons, etc. So if you're the kind of person that likes to play it safe with the heals, or I mean, potentially some stages it would just be a lot better as a frontline regardless of that, just to have that additional bit of healing. Hey, I think, it's a nice little addition to the unit. And bubble extension immunity, we like immunities on our standard gacha units, so that's pretty cool. Moving on from Shun, we are going to talk about Aeolia. Now, this is the unit that I pulled. I was hoping for Shun. Bear in mind, this is before I looked at any of the kits. I typically just say, which unit's my favourite? That's the one I want from this ticket. And I've had some good luck and some bad luck. I don't know. I think mostly good luck. But this event, I got Aeolia, who was not who I was hoping for. I was hoping for Shun, and since reading a bit of the story to get character names and skip for skills and stuff, I've taken quite a liking to Virgo Shaka. Shaka, I sadly also did not pull. But I don't think I've done too badly, because Aeolia is a very nice unit. Very solid unit, and it's got some nice utility to him, if I'm honest. Shock is not particularly uncommon nowadays, but it's still very good. He's still going to have some pretty good damage output. And bear in mind, Shock bypasses damage reduction, bypasses barrier, bypasses guard, and it's damage over time as opposed to damage at once. There's a plethora of situations where he's going to be putting out some pretty nice damage for you. One thing I'll say now, and I won't bring it up throughout the video because there's a few different characters this would apply to, but for burn, there are a ton of units that inflict burn on ultimate attack, that afflict it on support, afflict it for 1 turn, 2 turn, 3 turn, whatever, and there is a burn weakener. So burn has got a lot of love. It's not necessarily something you need to have in order to get the best out of the unit. It's just a bit of a shame that Shock and Freeze and Cyclone haven't got quite as much attention. But Shock's probably about second, I would say. I think, as far as I can remember, it's like Burn, Shock, Cyclone, Freeze. Freeze being the forgotten son of the elemental damage. However, Shock's Limited is kind of old now. Godspeed Killua? Has there been one since then? There hasn't. There's been loads of Burn ones since then. I think Cyclone is still only Rao, and Freeze is only Avan, so we're still waiting. We're still waiting on some more elemental damage limiteds, I think. I don't know if we're going to get any anytime soon, but as far as a standard gacha unit, I think you could do worse than Leo Aeolia, for sure. For sure. His buddy skill, he gives you a bit of buddy skill seal reduction, which sometimes it can be difficult to get the most out of when you've got a character who does this as a buddy skill as opposed to having it baked into a passive. You have to find the right situation, the right unit to attach it to. Like if you attach him to a frontline that has buddy skill seal reduction already, then he's not going to be sealed and you can use his support to help all the other team members. I don't know. I find it very difficult to find the right situations for units like that, but they do exist, and so it shouldn't be to his detriment. He is a good unit. He does have a good support. If you happen to get him to a higher level, very, very nice amount of base damage on that skill bubble boost. And I will say this, that has proven to be useful to me. Before, I kind of just didn't really factor this in, and I haven't used it, to clarify, I haven't used it on Leo earlier, but I could have, had I given him some jewels, simply because on the Saga stage, the boosted skill bubble damage on Boa Hancock was the difference between me clearing the stage in 2 turns and me dying. That little bit extra skill bubble base damage was the difference. And when I say the difference, how close it was, when I do the stage, if Muzan is the last attacker, because it's Muzan and Hyoga, my 2 hitters on the second stage, when Muzan goes for the attack itself, the animation doesn't kill him, but when he drops to the floor after the animation, that's where you see the last little bit of health disappear, which I thought was really quite cool. It can make a difference. It is quite good. The only downside is you're just not going to use Jaws on that, I don't think. Especially seeing as the secondary skill is buddy skill seal reduction. I don't think it's necessarily worth it. If you happen to have dupes of him, fair enough. And I mean, going forward, once he gets added to the standard gacha pool, that is a reasonable thing that could happen. You could pull quite a few dupes of him. You could get choice ticket dupes, whatever. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could. But eventually, you know, somebody's going to get one of these naturally from standard gacha or whatever down the line, and they're going to have a pretty nice support on their hands. One that could be quite useful, And then we have the passive. Unconditional attack boost, pretty common, pretty nice. And attack down immunity, pretty nice. Not much else to say there. I mean, I don't really want to go into full detail every time somebody's got an unconditional attack boost and an immunity, because it's quite common. But in a sense, you still have to say it's good, because there are units that don't have it, and that's bad. So it's good. I guess it's the norm. It's not necessarily like good. It's how it should be. So I've got myself a pretty nice unit now. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's move on to Virgo Shaka. Now, I'll be honest, as much as I like him as a character, as a unit, he's a little bit of a letdown. I think he shines best as a support, but a little bit of a letdown. He removes ultimate attack damage up from all enemies. What's the point? I mean, you could just say from the target enemy, it make no difference. Because ultimate attack damage up, as far as the game has come so far, as of making this video, is a PvP only skill. Because only the player can use it. The AI, the PvE enemies, don't have access to that skill. And because they don't have access to that skill, the only time you can negate is when you're playing against other players, which is in PvP. Now, sure, there is an argument that is still pretty good for PvP, and it can be used. But I would argue that realistically, most of the good PvP teams are just 4 limiteds nowadays. Not even the good, like some of the bad teams are 4 limiteds nowadays. It's not that you can't use standard gacha units in that role. It's just not something that's done as often. I mean, sure, if you've got him like max skill, he's doing, what, 422% damage, and negates 1 ultimate attack damage up, and 2 turns boosts his own attack. It's good. Like, it's usable, it's good at level 12, but I'd rather just have someone else. I'd rather have someone else in PvP, I'm sorry. Which is a shame. Like I said, I like the character. And it's not for me. It's not for me. That being said, you know, I'm not much of a PvP player, so it's a little bit unfair for me to judge too much, but I wouldn't use it. And I know a lot of the other players that I know that do like PvP and are invested in PvP would also not use it. But assuming you were a beginner and he was one of the only units you'd pulled early on, or you didn't have any limiteds or many limiteds, he is a very good option for PvP in that situation. And outside of PvP, he can be used, but because a whole part of his ultimate attack is irrelevant, usable, rarely optimal, I would say. His buddy skill gives a skill bubble and a little bit of board control, which is good. Rainbow bubbles, people. The best kind of board control, rainbow bubbles. If you happen to get into a high enough level, then again, the skill bubble boost, pretty nice. Not quite as good as Leo Aeolia, but pretty nice. And shock damage reduction. This sort of thing is becoming more common as a buddy skill, considering the initial like outrage about stuff like this. This is only 1 turn though, compared to the 2 turns that it may have been originally and the 2 turns that it is with the limited characters. But it's becoming pretty common, and I'm all for it because it is something you can use in PvP, it is something you can use in PvE. I think the intention is to use it for PvP, but it can be used in PvE. And I don't know, just very good support. And his passive, unconditional attack boost, as I mentioned before, very nice, and reduces curse by 2 turns. Pretty good. Like, if you come up against a stage that's a yellow boss and they inflict curse, you will still want to use Virgo Shaka, unless there, like I said, there will be situations where you just have better units, and that really lets him down for PvE. That's all I'll say. Very nice supporter. Very nice support. Let's move on to Aquarius Camus, or as I have been told, Aquarius Camus. Camus? I think that's it. That's what they said in the Soldier's Soul gameplay that I watched as well. So we'll go with that. And as a unit, quite nice indeed. Quite nice indeed. Has an interesting support. An interesting support. But quite a nice unit all round. To start off with, his ultimate attack gives you a nice strong freeze. Freeze is rare, you know, it's a rare ability nowadays. He gives a pretty nice freeze, and as with all the other elemental damages, with bypassing damage reduction, barrier, guard, etc. Very good. And his buddy skill gives a skill bubble plus a bit of ball control, much like Shaka did. And then we get 200 damage reduction for PvE and 500 for PvP. And you think, oh, okay. And what's it at max level? Still 200 and 35,000. 35,000 damage reduction. Now, obviously, 35,000 would be absurd in PvE. Because most teams don't have more than, like, what, 60, 70k health. So 35k is, like, huge. A huge amount. And it's for 2 turns. So that's why they've restricted that to PvP. I kind of wish this went up a little bit. Just a little bit. But this part is basically irrelevant in PvE. This is the part you want to concentrate on PvE. And it's still good. Skill bubble plus ball control. Still good. And I will be interested to see how people use this in PvP. Because it seems like it could be very good, but I'll wait until the people that are actually good at PvP can show me potential uses for that, because I don't know, I feel like in PvP you're just going to want to do more damage most of the time anyway. You're not going to worry about reducing damage and stuff like that. The passive. Conditional attack boost. Much like Seiya, good for the stage he counters, because the stage he counters is version 2 Saga, and Saga will bring your HP below this threshold to start the stage. So you'll be getting that buff regardless. I would say, while it's not a horrific restriction, much like Seiya, you know, HP is a little bit flexible. 80% is more flexible than Seiya's actually. But it's still a little bit like, it's a pretty standard boost. Like, it's not that much different than all the other standard gacha units, so I don't really know why it had to be behind the restriction. I assume just because the freeze is going to give him really high damage output to begin with. But, you know, it is what it is. And the immunity, again, the immunities are good. We know the immunities are good. Out of the standard gacha units, I quite like, other than Shaka, who I think that just really ruins the party for me. Other than him, I'm pretty happy with how all of them play out in standard gameplay. Quite nice. Pretty good units. Let's talk about the free units. Oh boy, this bit's fun. We do have Aries Moo here, who was a standard gacha on the Tier 1 version, now is not. And I don't know where you really put Moo as a character, because obviously you can see limited time event is in like a special point store and stuff. On the Tier 1 version, you can get Moo in the standard gacha from choice tickets. Like, Moo is featured in a gacha in the Saint Seiya event. On this version, Moo is going to be in this event and then disappear off the face of the planet until they decide to bring him back. Kind of a shame, but also at the same time, it is still an event unit, not a gacha unit, so not quite as good. But for a free unit, to be fair, gives you some okay damage. I always like this. Chance to appear as a rainbow bubble. It's really growing on me. I think I talked about it a little bit in the Bleach one, because Ichigo has it. Ichigo has it by a higher percentage as well, I think. It's like higher percentage and it's up to 4 bubbles. But it is definitely growing on me. I do like it. And I just kind of wish it was more common. It doesn't need to be spawn as rainbow. It could be spawn as like, it could be like blue has a chance to spawn as red or whatever. Or for a healer, chance to spawn as hearts, which, like, we've already got Nishino who converts to hearts, chance to convert to hearts. Now you could also have a character that's chance to spawn as hearts. You could have some crazy healing team. They could do some really cool things with that. So far, it's just been Rainbow. And that's fine, because it's good. It is good. And I think really gives Moo some usability. Because bear in mind, this is a free 99 lot character. 337% damage is whatever, really. But 3 turns. 3 turns! You have a 25% chance to get as many as 3 rainbow bubbles on the board. That's really nice. that's so good. Reducing bond damage is good. And boosting ultimate attack damage unconditional is good. Not much else to say about that. And then the buddy skill. Boost the base damage of 2 skill bubbles by 10%. Okay. Boost the blast radius by 1. Okay. And reduce the number of turns of bubble and effectiveness by 1 for red and green. Okay. All around, not bad. Bear in mind that goes up to 5 bubbles. And it's a free unit, so you're going to have no trouble with that. And 8 turn cooldown. And that goes up to 16%. You know what? You know what? It's a good support as well. As far as a free unit goes, I'm quite impressed. I'm quite impressed. We have Cancer Death Mask, who I've made some notes here, and I put not worth mentioning. It's just not worth mentioning. Unfortunately, Transcendent class characters typically don't have the best skill set. You quite often hope that the support will at least make up for that, and it quite often doesn't. But sometimes it does, you never know. His damage is really not anything special. It can get to like alright numbers, it can get above 300%, but only if the enemy has an attack up, which, let's be fair to the lad, attack up is quite common. So, there's at least that. I don't really think you'd be using him as a hitter though, so I don't think his damage output is really relevant. His buddy skill clears some block and blue off the board, which is nice, converts them to yellow, it's nice, and 3 turn boost of special skill damage, or special ultimate attack damage, whatever. There is definitely going to be chances where his block clear, his blue clear, these are going to be useful. I have no doubt they're going to be useful at some point. But the boost is not that much, even if it's for 3 turns. It's, again, it's okay. I mean, for a free unit, it's okay. And sadly, it's pretty much one of the only like super standout things about his skill set. And then we get to his passive. He has an unconditional attack boost, but it is very small. And he has attack down immunity, which is actually pretty nice. As a unit, I probably won't be using him that often, but that support, that buddy skill, potentially sometimes getting some use out of me. Let's talk about the next unit, Scorpio Milo. I have put next to his notes, not worth mentioning again. Damage is quite small. The poison can help a little bit with that. Poison, you know, it can bypass some reductions and stuff, so that's nice. And it potentially adds to his damage output a little bit. But again, his damage is quite small and you're not really going to be using him as a hitter. So it's not that relevant. His buddy skill, he is the blue version of Yachiru from Bleach. We talked about her in the Bleach batch review. And as I said with her, it's not bad for a 3-turn setup. You're getting some good boosts. If you happen to have the right team members, you can get some great damage off with it. And it's especially good if you need to get an attack down on the enemy in order for one of your units to do more damage, because they do boosted damage to attack down or whatever. So, not useless, just not great. Probably the best part of his skill though, probably the best part. And then his passive, reduce the number of buddies sealed on this unit by 1. Buddy skill set reduction's nice, but it's only by 1, which is not great. I know he's a Transcendent class unit, so you can't expect too much, but it's not great. And it's a very small attack boost. So again, him and Deathmask really not the best, unfortunately. But if you're a beginner, you know, you'll find some way to use them. Let's talk about Capricorn Shura. not too shabby. Not too shabby for a free unit. His damage goes up to 304%, but you do boosted damage to DPS. So we're talking 364% damage at max level against DPS. Obviously, only against DPS. But that damage output is not going to be bad, especially on stages like version 2 Saga. So, and just today I saw somebody using Shura on version 1 Saga. So the damage output can be there for a free unit, but nothing crazy. Nothing crazy there. The buddy skill, a little bit of board control to 13 red and green bubbles burst. Nice. And a 2-turn appearance rate boost for blue bubbles. This can come in pretty damn clutch. When you need to get full, like, you need to grab the board by by its reins. A lot of people use version 1, the gacha version of die, to take control of the board. He is another option if you don't have that die. It's not quite as good because you're not getting a conversion, you're just getting a burst, but in some instances bursting 13 red and green could also be very good, so pretty nice, pretty nice. And his passive, immune to bubble extension, we like immunities, and when there are 8 or more blue bubbles on the board before this unit's turn, boosts unit's attack by 18% for that turn, goes up to 29%. This is quite nice because while it is, yes, restrictive, the 8 or more blue bubbles on the board realistically is not going to be that much of an issue. It's not too restrictive because you will probably benefit from this boost on the turn you're going to burst. Either you're going to be... I doubt you'll be bursting with him. There might be situations where you're bursting with him. But chances are, if he's at the top of the... You know, he's in the 99 luck slot or whatever, you're going to have that many blue bubbles on the board when you go for your burst. So he's going to get that boost on the turn you burst. So that'll be the turn that he does his damage. So not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. At least it's a better buff than the Transcendence. I'll give him that. So I said, yeah, like I said, I'm not too shabby for a free-to-play unit. I might rate him a little bit higher, but we have this lad, the Incarnation of God Saga, who, in my notes, I have written down as one of the best in the game. Do not take that lightly. He is one of the best in the game. While his passive isn't super incredible, his ult is one of the best for 99 luck leads in the game, and for a lot of people he is going to be the go-to choice for the majority of stages where you want a yellow 99 luck lead. Simple as. He is the free-to-play weakener for yellow, and having him as the weakener is huge, especially if you don't have any of the limited weakeners. Yo, having a 99 luck weakener that can do 33% weakening to all enemies, not just one, to all enemies. Very, very nice. Very nice. And it will cement him as one of the best choices for yellow 99 luck leads for the foreseeable future. His buddy skill, a little bit of nice little bit of heal, and boosts the recovery of yellow and red team members up to 24%. That little bit of heal is pretty hefty. I personally think, considering if you look at Shiryu's skill is better because you're getting a skill bubble, even if it's less heal. But Saga, you can get to level 12 for free. He's a free unit. You get to level 12 for free. 8-turn cooldown, 7,400 heals, and a 2-turn recovery boost. Very nice. That's definitely going to see some use on some stages. I know, like, the strat for some people on Saga is to use Haruna Side Enji to give you some heals. Like, there are other stages where something similar is the case, and you need that little bit of heal to get you through just like one turn or whatever. Saga's your man. Saga could well be your man. And his passive reduces poison damage for this unit and boosts his attack by a small amount. I wish the attack boost was a little bit bigger. Maybe they could have made it conditional to justify it being a little bit bigger. But an unconditional attack boost means he's going to be good on more stages, so that's fine, I suppose. And the reducing poison damage, you know, it's good to have a poison damage reducer. It's not going to come into play too often because it's not that common a debuff. But it'll see some use. It'll definitely see some use. And last but not least from the units, we have Aquarius Shiner, who's been upgraded from a 3-star to a 6-star. And there is really nothing worth mentioning here except maybe the buddy skill. The damage, you know, her damage is better than Death Mask. But I don't think it's going to matter too much because there's really not much else going on here. And Death Mask isn't that usable to begin with. The buddy skill has been improved in the sense that it now has an attack boost, 3-turn attack boost. Sorry, 1-turn attack boost on a 3-turn cooldown. But I think still, there will be stages where you want to convert heart bubbles to yellow, sure. And the attack boost on top of that is nice. But she doesn't have much more use than she would have had before, so it doesn't make that much difference. And the passive skill is a recovery boost up to 40%. It's a pretty high percent boost. I don't know how many situations that'd be useful in though. Maybe in some super niche, super rare situations, you could see some reasonable use. But I don't think she's going to be that relevant. So, that's that. And then, we go to the Legend Database. The Legend Database holds for us 2 new Saint Seiya Legend Summons. Now, I did wait on the old Master. We're actually going to be getting full information on him soon after me recording this, but I kind of need to get this video out tonight because we're going to be getting info on JoJo and a lot of other stuff tomorrow. So this video kind of has to go out tonight. This is the latest I could leave it. So we don't have all the skill levels for the old Master. He is the PvP Legend Summon that we are getting during this event. But what information we do have, I would say he is good. A little bit situational, but there will definitely come a time for him. The problem with the Legend Summons is you have the ones that are really good at healing, you have the ones that are really good at buffing. Unless someone comes along and does a better job of those two, they're not going to come into your regular usage roster. But there will be stages where a certain debuff is running you ragged. Maybe buddy skill seal. Maybe this is for you. Maybe it's the time to use it. Plus, the amount of heal is very nice. 13k heal, flat heal, very nice. And then a little attack boost to sweeten the deal. I don't think it's going to use that often. I don't think it's going to get used that often, but it will get used at a time. There'll be a time for it. I don't know what that time is, but there'll be a time for it. And we also have the Golden Cloth of Sagittarius. Niche is the best way to put this. I really don't see a situation where this is going to be incredible. If you have like both of the limited Seiyas, and maybe like Camus, Hyoga, I don't know, maybe you run Shura as a 99 luck lead. Like there are situations where you can get pretty good damage here, and I mean even without the Saint Seiya specific attack boost, you're still getting a pretty nice buff there. You're getting a recovery boost, you're getting an attack boost. But I don't think it'd be a primary choice except in specific situations, specific stages, you have specific units. So it's a bit tricky. But, you know, for some people it'll be fun to just use that with their Saint Seiya team, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. So, that's pretty much it for this video. Lots more stuff being worked on. It's going to take a long time, but lots more stuff being worked on for the site, for YouTube, whatever. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be back with the news. I don't know, tomorrow, I suppose. It depends how much they actually announce tomorrow. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time.